Let's go back to this story. It was only a few weeks ago we touched on this. The massive queues, the potential queues of up to 7,000 lorries that could be seen outside Dover if hauliers fail to prepare for change to customs rules after the Brexit transition period ends. This is according to the government. It was a letter to logistics groups. Michael Gove outlined the government's reasonable worst-case scenario planning, which included a warning that between 30 and 50% of trucks crossing the channel will not be ready for new regulations coming into force on January the 1st next year, while a lack of capacity to hold unready trucks at French ports could reduce the flow of traffic across the strait to 60 to 80% of normal levels. Gove continued, this could lead to a maximum queue of 7,000 port-bound trucks in Kent and associated maximum delays of up to 2 days. Rod McKenzie is Managing Director of the Road Haulage Association. Afternoon to you, Rod. We've been in this conversation many times before. What makes this any different?
Ian, I think what makes this different is the government appears to be blaming us now for things they haven't done. What we've been saying to the government for about 2 years is, we really do need an IT system or IT systems that work. That box is not ticked. We really do need enough customs agents hired to do this huge amount of red tape that we'll have to do, about 220 million customs forms a year. And that box is not ticked. And the government's noticed that, and they're now blaming us for that. And actually, it's them that needs to sort this stuff out, and they haven't done it.
So in terms of, that's a very honest answer, Rod, but in terms of getting hold of the paperwork, is that the problem? So you guys and your members are ready to fill out whatever form needed. I'm putting this in layman's terms as far as I can ascertain it, Rod. But the forms are not forthcoming. The computers isn't up and running. What is the deal?
Well, it's a really sensible question to ask, Ian, and just to try and talk listeners through it, the government has had one go at producing a 200-page document. I've got it here in front of me for those who are able to see this. 200 pages. It's got more holes in it than Swiss cheese. In other words, it doesn't tell us what we need to do to fill in those forms that we're talking about, that the government is proposing to blame us for not filling in. So that's the first thing. Second thing is they're producing another document. We've had first sight of it today, 262 pages, so it's even longer. And you know what? It still doesn't tell people in absolutely crystal clear ways what you have to do. Now, this is a problem because we all rely on haulage, transport for the things we need, our sofas, parts of our houses, our cars, whatever it is, comes across the channel. And if that supply chain on which we all depend is hampered by government inaction, which it is at the moment, we're in a bad place come January next year.
So a truck going over into France, when arriving in Calais, will be asked to produce, I'm sure they haven't got to produce the 260-page form, that's the document, but that would that throw up a form of some sort, and it's those forms that are missing, or how to fill them out is missing?
Right. So there are 8 different IT systems that either the UK government or the French government are involved in. They need to be able to talk to each other. The government was going to do an app. We've heard that before on the Isle of Wight, haven't we? And it was going to be called Smart Freight. Then they discovered it didn't work. So now it's an online portal. And you know what? It's still not tested, still not up and running, and still not working. And that app, that online portal is absolutely crucial for every lorry driver to be able to tick a box to show that all the necessary paperwork, red tape, which we haven't had to do for 40 years, is done. And without that, the lorries will be held. And that's why this story around today about 7,000 lorries, 100-kilometre queue from Dover, as a reasonable worst-case scenario, has arrived. And I think what Michael Gove is trying to do in the letter he sent us is to basically kind of blame us. And I think we're being fitted up for things going wrong in January next year. He says in the letter, the biggest cause of disruption are traders not being ready for controls implemented. Well, I tell you what, Michael Gove, why don't you tell us what we actually need to do? Why don't you sort your own IT systems out? Why don't you get your act together and we'll do it?
So literally the paperwork required, the portal that would be needed is quite literally not up and running.
Correct. Yeah.
So with the best will in the world, you could be the greatest filler of online forms on the planet. You couldn't get to do it if you wanted to do it.
Well, that's absolutely right. And with 220 million forms to fill in next year, we need 50,000 customs agents to process that stuff. At the moment, there are just 5,000 in the UK, so we're way short of the people we need. So these people would have to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they still wouldn't get it done.
And I was just sorry to interject, Rod. I was going to say this paperwork is shown on both sides of the channel. It will be shown at Dover. It will be shown at Calais.
Well, we're not entirely sure about the answer to that because, of course, this is partly dependent on whether we have a deal or a no deal with Brexit, and the talks are going on now. But even if there is a no deal, there will be an onerous amount of, even if there is a deal, rather, there'll be an onerous amount of paperwork that people will have to do on both sides.
I noticed Michael Gove is speaking right now in the House of Commons. I'd like to think, Rod, that he was sitting in his office with the radio on and thought, I better get some information out there, legged it over to Westminster and is making an announcement connected to this. We will watch with interest. But meantime, Rod, thank you. I can hear the frustration literally oozing from Rod's comments there. He made an absolutely firm case that his industry needs the information and the guidance there from the government. That's Rob McKenzie, Managing Director of the Road Haulage Association, with us on Talk Radio. And if you are one of those truck drivers, one of those companies that rely on trucks to get your goods from over here to over there, etc., how are you feeling about this? Because Rod said we're ready to go, but we need the missing part of the jigsaw can't come from the Haulage Association or the lorry drivers or those companies. It's got to come from the government. At the moment, Mr. Gove is speaking. We'll bring you the details of what he is saying, if it should be relevant to this, shortly.